Now, hello and welcome to the Superior Comic Show with me, your host Peter. And today on the show, we have a very, very special guest. I'd like to welcome editor extraordinaire and some of the goldest tweets you'll see on Twitter. Heather Antos, welcome to the Superior Comic Show. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I love being known for my tweets. It's like a low bar of pride for me, but I love it.
Honestly, I think I said it in that first message to you that I was a big fan of your work and your tweets. And I kind of put it there with the likes of Gail Simone's tweets as well.
I love it. I love it. When I go to shows, like I would have so many people come to my table and be like, to be honest, I don't really know your work, but I love your Twitter. And then I'm just like, that's great. Buy my work. It's right here. But yeah. People know me by my tweets, which is something I never thought I'd be known for.
like straight away, I think of the Batman film had just come out and you just tweeted out like almost the day after it came out. Yeah. So how did Batman's parents die again? Or how did Batman's parents die? And I was like, I don't even want to look in the replies of that.
No, I dared tweet that Batman isn't a superhero. Would I put like, I can't say that the Batman's the greatest superhero film of all time, but that's mostly because Batman isn't a superhero. People got upset.
Yeah, you're basically sending your own bat signal there for a certain type of people.
Yeah.
Honestly, I have to say fair play for how you deal with it, because I've had that side of Twitter come over to a few of my tweets before, and I find if you don't deal with it the way the likes of you and Gail Simone deal with it, it's exhausting.
Yeah, I always it's a hard lesson to, I think, for anyone with any sort of following to learn, even if it's 500 followers or 5,000 or whatever, assholes are going to asshole. That's just kind of what it is. And you're a complete stranger to me. I really don't care what you have to say. And to lash out and get super upset at something that was obviously a joke. And so it's one of those things where I block left and right, I'll mute, I'll whatever. I like to keep my feed positive, and then if you're a particular brand of asshole, then I'll throw down, but but usually I'm it's just meant to have fun, just to have fun on there.
Yeah, I won't get into it too much, because I know from speaking to other creators, they don't like to talk about it too much because it kind of brings a target. But I know there's a certain banner that a lot of these assholes kind of tend to run under. And I myself will, before following anybody who follows me, I will look in the bio. And if I see that anywhere, I'm like, yeah, no.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, not a hope.
Absolutely.
And it's just with your tweets as well, what I find is they're funny. I know for a fact, I'm looking at it, and I think there's the Tom Hardy gif from Mad Max where it's that's bait.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd be looking, I go, it's how are people getting so annoyed when it's clearly meant.
Yeah.
You're falling right into the trap.
Yeah. Thank you for proving my point. Thank you.
At the end of the day, what I always say about Twitter is it's all opinions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, unless it's someone tweets something that is harmful or bigoted or racist, it's just an opinion at the end of the day.
Yeah. And look, Twitter passion brings out the worst in people, I think. Passion is great. It's we're all here because we're passionate. We're being vocal about comics or movies or superheroes, whatever, because we're passionate. But it's just not to spend too much more time on it, but it's nice to see the passion, but use it effectively, I guess.
Yeah, don't fall into my trap. I tweeted out that Tobey Maguire was an overrated Spider-Man, and I was getting notifications for days. that one kept me busy. Anyway, listen, off the Twitter and onto your work. So, at the minute you are an editor, a job which I find goes under the radar a lot when people talk about comics, but is what I'm finding now that I'm doing my own comic is a vital job, because otherwise stupid shit gets through.
Yeah, or nothing gets through, or nothing happens, right? Like that's we're the bus driver essentially. Like we're the ones steering the ship, and like I, it's funny when I started pursuing editing and self-publishing and all of this stuff, and my first project I put together was like a big comic anthology where I got a bunch of different writers and artists together, and my whole pitch to them was like, I'll do all the shit that you don't want to do. Like, you just want to sit and write, you just want to sit and draw, that's all you have to do. I'll take care of everything else. Because like and I'm sure you experienced this too, if you were, starting your own comic, you're like, great, I have this awesome idea and it's drawn now. And then it's the like, but how do I print it? How do I get it out there? Like, how do I get it in stores? How do I get it on the internet? It's like all of these other things that like you don't think of until you're there.
Yeah, my first comic was delayed for so long because of those exact reasons. I didn't know where to go to print it. I didn't know where to go to get all these rewards I had promised done. I got it done eventually, but it's a headless chicken job. I finished the writing, my artist finished the art, and then I was like, oh shit, what do I do now?
Oh, we still have to like make it like
anyone who ordered a digital copy, I can send them that, but in terms of physical, I'm not quite sure how to do this.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of, and look, like obviously I've worked for various publishers, so there's a lot of other roles and production and sales and marketing. The bigger the company, obviously the more hands are involved and more departments are involved across the boards. But even it's the same thing. Like even your indie comics, like it still has to get put together and uploaded and sent to print and delivered and distributed and like so whether it's one person or 20 people doing it, it's still got to get done. And I always say like every comic is this little miracle. Like every comic that gets made is a miracle, because if you actually sit and think about how much work goes into a single 20-page floppy and how long that took to make from like pitch to print to store, like that's insane. It's insanity. Like, why do we do this? It's absolutely insane, because it's also like there's 50 other comics that go on sale that same day. Like it's crazy. What we do is crazy.
Really, like it's when you first go into it, I know speaking to a lot of indie creators, they were the same. When you first go into it, you just think of it as a writer and an artist. And I know some people do it themselves. I tried to, my artist done the coloring for me, which was fantastic. And then I said, I'll do the letter and I'll just self-teach. I was seeing speech bubbles in my nightmares for weeks. And, like, in terms of editing, like my brother is he's studying to be an English teacher, so I use him as my editor. And yeah, he stopped a lot of stupid shit going through. So that's kind of my next question for yourself. Was there ever, with any of the publishers you were working for, did you ever have to kind of put your foot down and say, listen, no, we can't do that?
Oh yeah, there's been plenty of times, and like there's, in my job, there's two different like realms of editing, I like to say. There's IP licensed editing, where you're working for your Marvels, your DCs, your Star Wars, all the big brands that everyone knows and loves. And then you have your creator owned stuff, which is everything that you see at like Image, Walking Dead, Time Over Time, like all of these things. And there's two different realms of that, right? When I am working on an IDW book, like the Star Wars or Star Trek books that I do there, I am the keeper of the keys. I am the one that ultimately gets to tell the writer or artist, we can't do that. Like, sorry, you want to kill Picard, but like we can't do that. Like he needs to live on, and they have to listen to me, right? I am the law, and when it's something like just for instance, like a Time Before Time that I worked with Declan Shalvey over at Image, that's his book, that's his story, that's his baby. And so he might, and this is all like hyperbole, this hasn't actually happened, but like for instance, like he could like pitch the worst idea in the world to me, and I could be like, Dak, like I don't know, man, like I really I would consider doing anything but that. And he'll be like, no, I really want to do this. I want to like have a comic that's just all blank pages. It's great. I don't know, probably not. Let's not do that. But it doesn't matter what I think. Like I am there kind of as like, you know, I'm there as the advisor. I'm there to like kind of guide and shape and like help assist, but with story on top of all the like schedule managing and all the other stuff that I do. But like when it comes to the creative stuff, like at the end of the day, like it's up to the creators who own the creator owned project. So, you know, you get varying degrees of that. I never let the creator owned, like the creator's authority, like stop me from giving my opinion. I'm very, again, if you follow me on Twitter, you know, I'm very vocal and I'm not shy, but like, you know, it'll be a thing where I'll be like, look, I think this is a bad idea. Like, I think there are better ways to go about this. If you disagree, okay, we will move forward and you know, life goes on and the story will go on and we'll make do. But like, I don't think this is the right choice. But I will say there was one time in my career where a writer did put something in a script that I was just vehemently against, and it ended up getting to the point where I had to say like, look, if you want to move forward with this, you absolutely can, but my name will not be on this book. And that's what it took for them to change their mind. That's what it took for them to like, oh, maybe she has a point. So like, and I never done that before.
You need to get extreme with some people to get them to listen, especially writers can be very protective over the stuff they've written.
Yeah. Well, and it's not just being protective. I think it's also just being like, you're so in it and you've been living with it for so long that it's hard to view it from any other perspective than your own. You know, it's so hard, especially like not to like get political or whatever, but like especially if you're writing from a very specific lens and you're not taking into view, you know, like how people of other cultures or genders or ethnicities might view what you're doing. You know, you could be completely ignorant of the things that you're putting in there, and it might be well-intentioned, but you know, impact is different than intent, right? Like and so that's why, like, of all reasons to have an editor, I think that is a very important reason to have an editor.
Yeah, what you were saying there before about Declan Shalvey could say he wants this and he'd have to go ahead with it. I've spoken to Declan before, and if anyone's going to do something mental like that, it's him. He's just, but it's there, you're basically the keeper of the keys when it comes to the other kind of with IPs and stuff. So basically you would kind of be in control and you would have to look out for continuity errors and things like that as well. Kind of, you'd have to be up to date.
Yeah, it's so an editor's job is like a million different hats. You know, not only are you in charge of like casting and, you know, the story and making sure all the creative, right? Like all the continuity, like I got to make sure everything lines up as much as possible, and I got to make sure that's in the script, but also in the art. And I got to make sure everyone's hitting their deadlines, and I got to make sure corrections are getting made and the right files are going to whom, and covers are happening and solicits are happening, but also the schedules are happening. And it's not just about getting this book to print, but it's also making sure this artist can get this book and the next book and the next book and the next book and the next book to print, you know, for like 20 different series all at a time. Like, it's not, you know, like I wish I could just focus on one book at a time, but that's just not how it works. I think right now I'm working on 26 different projects, like all at the same time. And it's crazy.
Yeah. To try add, I have a little invader into the room now. Try add one of them in when you're trying to do your work. The little one has just come in to visit. She heard me talking upstairs and so to investigate. So she's a little mind of her own. She's my kind of first point of contact in terms of editor. I'll run a story by her and she's like, nah, like, yeah, right, scrapping it. But yeah, like, seriously, the amount of work that goes into being an editor is just insane. I don't know where you find the time to sleep or eat or do any kind of actual living.
I mean, look, I definitely overwork myself and I take on more than I should. I know that. I will be the first to admit that. But it really helps to, have a system that works, and I always say when I train new editors, like, this is what works for me, but like, it's important for you to figure out what systems, organization patterns work for you. And like, when I did the anthology I was talking about before, I was working a full-time day job straight out of college. At the time, like 8 hours in office, an hour commute each way. So that's like half my day. Like that's that right there. And I was trying to put together this anthology that had 17 short stories by, and like 50 different creators were involved across the world. Like that was, and I had no experience doing this before. I had no idea what I was doing. And so like a lot of that was like figuring out what works. And I learned a lot doing that. And like, 90% of editing is casting the right people and working with the right team. I always say, if it is up to me, if this is an IP book, an IDW book, a Marvel book, whatever, and I have full control over who I'm hiring, then why the hell would I hire someone that doesn't communicate, cannot hit a deadline, and let alone, why would I hire 4 people that can't communicate, that can't hit a deadline, right? Like, I always say when I teach editing, when I teach creative management, I say, like, allow yourself max 1 problem child per book, just one, because it's otherwise you're doing it to yourself essentially.
Yeah, and you were saying it as well with how far into your career was it where you had to put your foot down and with that one and say, I'm taking my name off the book unless you take this out? Was that kind of?
Oh, that was a more recent one. That was like within the last 3 years. But even on that first project, like I had, you're gonna run into all sorts of different like personality types in comics, right? Different levels of ego, different levels of pride, different levels of whatever. And like as an editor, you have to be able to manage all those different personality types. And there's a bit of like, you really can't, like, your job at some point is to be a bad guy, and you got to get comfortable with that real quick. Like my job is to take care, like my job first and foremost is to put out a bang ass comic book. That is my job. That is my job, is to put out the best comic book I can. Next to that, it's to take care of the creators I work with. But like really my job is to put out great comics, and like, I'm sorry, but if you are being a dick, if you are not hitting your deadlines, if you are not communicating, if you're bullying other talent, I do not give a shit how you feel about me when I fire you off this book, right? Like, that's just like, you are bringing down the team, you are hurting the other players involved. And ultimately, like, I don't want to be working with someone like that. And so like, these are calls that like, it's awkward, especially when you're younger. And like, I was like 22 when I was starting, and like, everyone wants to be liked and no one wants to be mean, and everyone's just trying hard. And of course they're not happy, but also we all have a job to do, and don't be a dick.
It's basically parenting at the end of the day, but like your kids are all grown.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, that's I was like so much of my job is wrangling and babysitting like people who could be my father. Like,
Don't start playing nice with the other creators. I'm putting you on timeout.
Yes, exactly.
And you have a writer as well. Is editing kind of like, almost, it's an expression I use for football or soccer, as you call it over there, that all the best referees were players before. You need to be, if you're a referee, you can understand the rules, but you don't understand the game. Is it the same kind of with editing and writing?
Sort of. There's a thin line in that where like, if you want to be an editor, I always make sure like you want to be an editor. It's not your stepping stone to becoming a writer, because we see it a lot where there are editors who just come in and really just want to rewrite the whole thing. And they don't even realize that they're doing it. And or even like redraw, like redo the layouts or whatever. And like that's not my job as I see it. That's not my philosophy. Like my job is to, if you're the writer, like really understand what your intention is and really understand what your goal is and help be a conduit to bring that to life in the best way possible. That is my job. It's not to tell the version of the story that I want, it's to figure out what is the best version of your story that we can put out there. And so a lot of like editing for me is I ask a lot of questions. I'll hop on a call and be like, what are you trying to do? What is your intent with this? Because I don't know, I can't figure that out. And so I want to figure out your intent so I can help you get there the quickest way possible. It's like if you're in a car, right? And you're driving somewhere and I, as the, I'm supposed to be the GPS, but I have no idea where the location is for going. And so I can't help him get there, right? I literally can't help him get there because I just have no idea where we're going. But if I know where that end goal is, okay, well, this is the fastest route, or this is the scenic route. Which route do we want to take?
I know myself, some writers can get very lax on that. I know when I started writing, I knew what I wanted to do with the first issue, but even then, when speaking on a call to my artist, she was like, right, so where's this book?
What's next? Yeah.
I was like, honestly, I don't know. I haven't really thought past the first issue, so I had to go back and in my head, have it like done up for like the next 2 years. And I was like, okay, I'm changing some stuff now in issue 1 because of
exactly. And that's one of the first things I always do when I work with someone is like, what's your outline for the whole thing? Because not just for this chapter, but what's it for the whole arc, that way we can figure out any problems before you actually write them. But yeah, no, kind of back to your earlier question, I do write, I do draw, I do color, like I do have a background in, kind of every aspect of comics. And like, so yes, I do think comics is like the perfect combination of my skill set, but when I started comics, I didn't know how to color. I didn't know coloring terminology. I didn't know lettering. So what I did, I took classes. I learned because, my philosophy, if I'm going to be giving you, a professional colorist who has been coloring comics for 20 years, notes, I better sure shit know what I'm talking about, or at least be able to speak the same language as you in order to communicate that. Because that's something I've seen so often throughout my career is you get all of these people who, well, they only study creative writing. And that's fine, but then they don't know how to give visual storytelling notes. Or you have people who, are just like super hardcore X-Men fans and they know everything about the X-Men that has ever existed and can list them all, but they don't know how to tell a good story, and like first and foremost, that's the skill, is being able to understand and deconstruct what a good story is. And that doesn't necessarily mean you have to be able to write a good story, but it does mean you sure as shit have read a lot of them.
I said there, but even actually the X-Men there, being an editor, do you have to kind of sometimes put aside some personal feelings or bias when it comes to editing a book of a character you love? Like, I know if I was editing a Spider-Man book, I'd want to kind of almost micromanage it.
No, I don't know. Like I'm sure for some people, absolutely yes. Like I'm very good at like taking my personal feelings out of it and just like, I want to be excited about this story that we're telling here and everything. Like now having, had a mark on some characters for as long as I have, right? Like I do have like personal feelings about like other people working on those characters, right? We all do. That's how it works, So like, is it hard for me to like now look at stories about Gwenpool and see how they were edited or told and whatever, and that's like not the way I would have done it? Absolutely, 100%. But while working on it, no, like that was never really a thing.
And fair play. I would need like time, a coffee, some time alone just to put the personal bias aside. But you mentioned Gwenpool there as well, that like iconic with yourself and other people writing as well. So how was it when it came time to almost pass the mantle on to someone else to work on the book?
It was hard. I mean, look, I got to finish Gwen's whole run through issue 25 of her inaugural series. And like that came out like literally right when I quit Marvel. So like I knew, and at that time they didn't really have plans for her after that book. I knew they were putting together West Coast Avengers, and like I'm friends with Kelly Thompson, and so I was like, you should put Gwen in it, you should put Gwen in it, you should put Gwen in it. And like Kelly did put her in it, like for me. It's kind of a favor for me, but like I mean, it was sad, but like we knew, again, the series was getting canceled. Obviously we knew, we worked into the story. Like so it was sad, it was bittersweet, but like I do think that book is like as close to a perfect series as you can get. And I'm not just saying that like because I worked on it. Like I really do think it's a very, very powerful story that the whole team handled very well. So like I'm very happy to have had the part in that I was able to have, and just kind of like hang down my mantle and like, that's my Gwenpool, we did it, and just be really proud of that.
Yeah, and how would you feel if you ever saw her kind of make her way onto the big screen? I know
Oh my gosh.
Declan Shalvey's sharing a lot of stuff since Moon Knight is coming out now, and he's kind of saying it's a very surreal feeling. He doesn't know how to feel at the minute.
It's weird. I mean, I just had it with the Book of Boba Fett. One of the Star Wars characters I helped create, like, appeared in Book of Boba Fett, Black Chrysanthemum, the Wookie,
Yeah.
that we all see in that. And it was like, it's so weird. It's like really, really cool and terrifying and amazing all at the same time. Because you want them to get it right? Like you want them to get it right, but they're gonna do whatever it is they want to do. But you're just happy that they're acknowledging that they exist. It's just like the weirdest, but then you hope the fans like it, right? Like, so like Gwen is the same thing. And that's something that, like, you know, I've been asked a lot over the years, you know, who would you want to play her, or what would you want her to show up in, or all of these questions. And I've tried really, really hard to like not put any expectations on her or her appearance, because like I feel like that is why people have such angry reactions to things anyway, is like they've made their headcanon, right? They've decided this is who should play this character, and it should be this movie, and it should be this thing, and then that's not what actually comes out, and people get mad about it, you know, or upset. And like, so for me, not that I would get mad, but like I want to not set myself up for disappointment. And so if she ever were to appear in anything, I want to like just be happy that it exists and be able to go in that way.
What you're right about, the most of the stuff I see people getting mad about the new shows is, like you said, they've made it up their own headcanon, and they're stuck with it now, and people can be stubborn when it comes to something they pitch to themselves.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it with Boba Fett most recently, right? Like everyone's just like, this should be like the Punisher, this should be like this show, you know, all of this stuff. And I'm just like, where was that pitched that it would be like that was never what that show was was marketed as. It's just your headcanon. You're mad that you were wrong.
Yeah, it's like with all the Marvel shows now on Disney Plus. Just Mephisto is just a name constantly thrown out with every show that comes out. And then there was the Ralph Boner moment as well that had Twitter in full outrage.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I went straight onto TikTok after it, and I was like, that is the most expensive dick joke ever.
For sure.
Kids are going crazy downstairs, I swear. But in terms of writing, editing, coloring, drawing, what is your favorite book you've ever worked on, other than Gwenpool?
Other than Gwenpool, goodness. no one will have read this because like I think there was like 1,000 orders, but I edited a one-off called Not Brand X number 13 from Marvel, and it was like a one-shot relaunch of the old series from like back in the 60s, where it's a satire comic. It's just a bunch of stuff making fun of comics. And like back in the day, like Not Brand X was making fun of DC stuff. It was Marvel's, you know, making fun of DC. But what I did is I had it make fun of Marvel, make fun of current modern Marvel. And so like we had a story that was literally making fun of how Gwenpool was originated, like making fun of like literally she was a cash grab. That is why Marvel execs made her, was because she was a cash grab. And so that story isn't, you know, it's just a comical version of that. And then like I had Nick Spencer writing a satire story making fun of Secret Empire and like all of that stuff. And so like I had the Marvel creators like actually make fun of themselves and make fun of Marvel, and it was just super fun. And no one read it, but I'm very proud of it and I enjoy it.
Well, I'm gonna actually go back and look into that now. Look, I'm gonna be honest here, I don't mean to be unprofessional. The kids are going crazy. She's still not well downstairs, so I will have to cut it a bit short today. But look, thank you very much for coming on, just sharing some time with me and sharing those words with me. And I'll make sure I have my notifications on for your tweets anyway.
Yeah.
So
of course, and we'll have to do it again when she's feeling better.
100%. Thank you very much. The fantastic Heather Antos. Don't forget to follow her on Twitter if you don't. Well worth the follow.
Take care. Bye.